UFC 302, Makasha versus Poirier, full card predictions. Late video, but just want to make sure I had all my thoughts written out and everything like that before I got into it. Starting at the bottom of the card, make my way to the top as always. First fight of the night we have is Andre Lima versus Mitch Raposo. Starting with Andre Lima, I do think Andre Lima wins this fight. Reason being, he's not taking this fight on short notice. Mitch Raposo is taking the fight on short notice. He hasn't fought the same level of competition as of recent. Andre Lima's fought better guys on the, at least in his last few fights. Igor Severino, I feel like, is actually a very, very solid fighter. Even Rickson Zenedine was 14-2, 14-1 on the Contender Series. Andre Lima went out and beat him. Zenedine was a little bit like afraid almost of Lima's power. On the side of Raposo, he is training out of New England Cartel, which is a very good gym. However, the last guy that Raposo fought that was even, a solid fighter, really, a good fighter, was Jake Hadley, in which he looked good on the feet, but he ended up getting submitted in round two, taken down and just easily outgrappled by Hadley. Raposo's other loss, I know it says 9-1, but he also lost on the Ultimate Fighter, which doesn't count against his record, but he did lose to Ludovic Shalinian in that one. So for Raposo, I feel like both guys are young. Both guys have time to improve. I do like Lima, though. I think he has a better overall striking game. Throws really good elbows that are very damaging. I think Raposo definitely looks to load up on that overhand right. I saw in his regional fights, he really likes that overhand right, likes to load up on it. He can mix up his strikes a little bit, but that's one that he really likes to go to. I think this fight will look similar to the Lima and Zenedine fight, where Lima is the one pushing forward, landing the heavier shots. Raposo is the one backing up a lot. And I think that will be to Lima's strength, and Lima will end up winning this fight either by decision or possibly a late finish for Andre Lima is my prediction. I don't think either guy will have too much grappling success. I do think it'll be a striking fight. Next up, we have is Jocelyn Edwards versus Eileen Perez or Aylin Perez. I'm going with Perez here. Edwards, the thing I don't like about Edwards is she hasn't separated herself really in many fights. She always fights close in almost all of her fights. Even in her losses, Nora Cornoli, I thought she looking back, initially when I was watching that fight, I thought Edwards did enough to win, but when I rewatched the fight, I was like, all right, Cornoli won the fight pretty clearly on damage. Lucy Pudilova, she won by split against her, won a split against Jian Kim, beat Ramona Pasquale, and then lost to Jessica Rose Clark to round out her last five. So she's not dominating any fights. She's very low level. This is a low level fight to begin with. So I understand some people would say in a low level women's MMA fight, just take the underdog. But I do think Aylin Perez has a clear path to victory if she can get her wrestling and grappling going, which I do think can be the case here. In her fight against Lucy Pudilova, Edwards was controlled for a large portion of round two in that one against Pudilova, whereas Aylin Perez dominated Pudilova for rounds 1 and 2 before gassing out in round 3, getting tired, and Pudilova ended up winning that round. I think ultimately, as long as Aylin Perez doesn't completely gas out and get tired as the fight progresses, I think she should be able to take down Jocelyn Edwards at a fairly high clip and out grapple her en route to a win, probably by decision, I would imagine. Aylin Perez, I think she wins round 1 at a very, very high percentage. I think she wins round 2 at a fairly high percentage, not as high of a percentage as round 1, obviously, but I do think she wins round 2 at a high clip. And then round 3 is where it might get a little bit dicey, but I still think Perez, even if she loses round 3, she should be able to bank the first 2 rounds using her superior wrestling and grappling. I have no trust in the takedown defense of Jocelyn Edwards, nor do I have the trust in her grappling. The striking, on the other hand, I think it could be competitive. Honestly, I think Edwards might even have a slight striking edge, but I don't expect this fight to play out on the feet. So I do think Aylin Perez, using her wrestling, will get Edwards down and will get on top and control her en route to a win. Next up, Mickey Gall versus Basil Hafez. I'm going with Basil Hafez here. First thing with Gall is he got knocked out pretty badly in his last fight against Mike Malott, and that was 2 years ago. So 2-year layoff for Mickey Gall after taking a knockout defeat. I don't like Mickey Gall. I don't like either guy striking. I think Hafez and Gall both have very poor striking. The line is a little bit wide. I wouldn't, lay minus 400 or even really put Hafez in a parlay. I know a lot of people are parlaying Hafez. I understand why. Like, he is the better fighter here, in my opinion, but minus 400, it's a bit wide. I don't think either guy is a great striker. I think Hafez has the power to hurt Gall. I think if Hafez lands clean, he can knock Mickey Gall out or really, as I said, really hurt him. But it's not like Hafez has really technical striking. His striking is not really that great. I think Hafez, he's a grappler, he's a wrestler through and through. That's kind of what he is. His last fight against Jack Della Maddalena, he shot like 17 takedowns. Only got a few of them, but that was on short notice. And he clearly lost the fight. I know it was a split decision, but realistically, he lost the fight clearly, in my opinion. Despite that, I don't think it was a terrible look, just for the fact that he had a somewhat competitive fight, even though I did think he lost. Somewhat competitive fight against a guy as good as Jack Della Maddalena. No shame there, especially on short notice. The thing with Hafez, though, if you look through his last few fights, he's been going to some split decisions. He's had close fights. In fights that he doesn't separate himself, as far as in fights where he doesn't find a finish, like a knockout or a submission, oftentimes he doesn't separate himself enough and he goes to close decisions. So that is a bit of a worry if you're on the Hafez side, especially if you're betting him. But Gall, I don't think Gall's super. I don't think he's super high level. He's 7-5, and he's been in the UFC for a long time. But if you look at his UFC wins, he beat CM Punk, Mike Jackson, Salim Tahari, Jordan Williams. Like, a lot of his UFC wins have not really aged super well at all. And his losses, Mike Perry, Alex Moreno, and Mike Malott, those three guys are solid. I mean, but Mike Perry out grappling Gall was not a great sign when you're fighting a guy in Basil Hafez who probably will shoot multiple takedowns here. I think as far as the durability, I think Hafez has the durability edge. I think he has the power edge. I think that his chin should be good enough to take strikes. If he could take strikes from Jack Della Maddalena, I would imagine his chin is also good enough to take any shots that Gall is throwing at him. And then lastly, as I mentioned, the takedowns, I think Hafez will probably hit takedowns at a high clip and probably will be able to hold down and control Mickey Gall. If Mickey Gall was able to be controlled by worse grapplers, Hafez is a black belt who apparently beat him in a grappling match. I don't think that really has anything to do with an MMA fight, but regardless, I think Hafez is the better grappler and wrestler, which is where I expect this fight to take place. So I am going to take Basil Hafez ultimately to win, but minus 400, it's a pretty wide line. Next up, we have Phil Rowe taking on Jake Matthews. Phil Rowe and Jake Matthews. So I want to first start with Rowe's last fight against Neil Magny. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. He had a terrible game plan. He got pushed up against the cage, a lot of clinch time for both guys. Just an ugly, ugly fight. I think Rowe had an opportunity to win that fight if he just separated and threw a little bit of volume at range. He could have won the fight, but he showed very poor fight IQ. Very poor fight IQ. He could have won that fight and broken into the rankings, but ended up losing that one. Now, the fight against Nico Price, he was actually up on the judges' scorecards, but got rocked in round 3 and hurt, and then ended up actually coming back and finishing Nico Price in round 3. His other wins in the UFC, he did lose to Gabe Green in his first UFC fight, but his last 3, Orion Cosey, Jason Witt, and Nico Price are his last 3 wins. Not super high-level wins. But Matthews, I don't think Matthews' wins are really that great either if you look at it. I mean, Matthews, he beat Andre Fiallo, Darius Flowers, and if you keep looking through his record, it's not like his wins have really aged well, to be honest. Diego Sanchez, Amel Weber Meek, like, just look through. I mean, he did have a win over Li Jingliang, but a lot of his wins outside of that have not, like I said, have not aged super well. Phil Rowe is a guy who it does have the intangibles here as far as he has a much longer reach. He's a taller guy. I think this is going to be a striking fight as well. And both guys don't have amazing durability. I'd favor Rowe's durability over Matthews personally, but you never really know. I mean, Matthews did have a competitive fight against Michael Morales. So I think both guys are a little bit like hit or miss. Both guys can be hot and cold depending on the fight. I think decision equity definitely favors Jake Matthews here. Matthews has 6-3 in fights that go the distance, whereas Phil Rowe is 0-3 in fights that go the distance. Rowe's never won a decision, so that is a bit of a concern there. And the cardio, I would say, favors Matthews probably as well. But the problem I have with Matthews is the fact that he doesn't always fight. Neither guy fights him like super smart, but I think Matthews will give Rowe the fight he wants, probably a kickboxing fight. I don't think he's going to shoot a ton of takedowns here. And if you're telling me that Jake Matthews won't shoot takedowns here, I think this is probably close to a 50-50 pick'em fight. I think Rowe, honestly, with his reach advantage, could look decent enough. I'm not sure if I don't think he's going to separate himself too much, but in a kickboxing fight at range, which I expect it to be because Matthews most likely won't shoot takedowns, I think Phil Rowe actually has a shot here. I think it's a close fight. I'm going to go with Phil Rowe as the underdog just because I could see this being a fight where both guys are just kind of pick at each other. And yeah, so like I said, in a fight that goes a distance, or not in a fight that goes a distance, in a fight where I think it's going to be a striking fight, I'll take the guy who has a 8-inch reach advantage, the taller guy, the longer guy. Rowe doesn't always use all of his attributes to his benefit, but if he does here, he can definitely win this fight. And I'll take him as the first underdog of the night. And I just want to be clear, I don't have many underdogs on this card. Almost all favorites, just because I think this is one of those cards where mostly favorites win. But I think this Rowe and Matthews fight is fairly competitive, to be quite honest. Grant Dawson versus Joe Selecki is the next fight of the night. Where are we? Grant Dawson, Joe Selecki. Okay. I want to mention Dawson's awful last fight against Bobby Green, first thing off the bat. Dawson had a terrible look in that one. He got dropped with a straight left hand and finished subsequently after. That was a bad, bad performance by Grant Dawson. It was a 30-second fight, and he got knocked out by Bobby Green immediately. And that's Bobby Green, who's a little bit older at the time. Obviously still old, but he's like, 37, 38 years old when he got knocked out by Green. I just don't like that. You know what I mean? Grant Dawson, 30 years old. He was 29 at the time. Everyone was thinking this is where he breaks into the top, breaks into the rankings even more. This is where he takes a big step up. First main event for Dawson. I just don't like the fact that Dawson went in there and got knocked out in 30 seconds by Bobby Green. Not a bad look. As far as this fight, though, I don't think Selecki has much finishing upside or really finishing equity as far as the knockout goes. I think Dawson is the better. I think both guys have pretty poor striking, but I think Dawson's a better wrestler and grappler. I think that Joe Selecki has been put on his back before in fights, and I think Dawson can do the same thing. Dawson has relentless wrestling. He has ATT wrestling, and he could be on that the ATT. There's always something in the water over there. We saw a Pantoja fight. Pantoja is definitely on something. I'm just going to say it right now. I believe he is. Just the fact that he looks so tired in every fight, but he pushes through every single time. You could say that's just a mindset thing, but it's a little bit weird when certain guys go to ATT and they start having amazing cardio and can push hard for 3 rounds. So a little bit fishy there. Regardless, I do think Grant Dawson gets this one done. He dominated Demir as I said he would. I said he would beat Demir. I said he would take his back. He's a guy that can take people's back, lock in that body triangle. I said he would do it to Demir. Everyone was on Demir. And then I was the one on Dawson. He ended up winning that. Mark Madsen fight as well. He dominated an Olympic wrestler in Mark Madsen a few fights back and ended up submitting him. So I think Grant Dawson does have elite wrestling and grappling. I do think he does. I think he can get to Selecki's back, or even if he can't get to the back, even if Selecki does have enough, because I do think Selecki's a solid grappler. Even if Grant Dawson can't get to the back, he's going to get Selecki down and just lay on top of him, just kind of rack up that control time. So I have Grant Dawson winning this one. Both guys have fairly bad chins, not great durability. Selecki can get hurt. Dawson can definitely get hurt. He got rocked early in the Mark Madsen fight, but kind of wrestled his way out of it. So both guys, bad durability, bad striking, but Grant Dawson has a very, very much superior wrestling game and grappling game, as well as he trains out of the better gym. One more thing is Selecki doesn't mind being on his back. He likes kind of playing jiu-jitsu from his back. I don't like that against a guy in Dawson who's training with some of the best grapplers and wrestlers in the sport. So I think Dawson will be well aware of any threats coming from Selecki. So Grant Dawson is a pick for me, heavy favorite. So not really much value there. Jailton Almeida versus Alexander Romanov. Interesting one. I'm going with Jailton Almeida. I don't like Alexander Romanov's game at all. I really like the Juan Espino fight. He kind of got exposed there. That was the first fight where he got exposed pretty badly. And then he really got exposed, more so in the Alexander Volkov fight. That Volkov fight, he just got embarrassed. Terrible fight against Alexander Volkov. He shot like one or two takedowns, couldn't get it, and then just gave up. And Volkov finished him early in round one. I think Romanov is just a guy. He's a big, heavy guy. If he gets on top of you, he can do damage. He's gotten forearm chokes before. He rains down ground and pound King Kong. But if he can't get you down in the first like 2 minutes of the fight, he's going to gas out. I think Almeida's got the better gas tank. Not that Almeida's like a cardio machine, but I think Almeida's definitely, has better cardio here. I think he's the stronger guy I think he's just a better grappler overall. Sure, Romanov might have that kind of, King Kong smash ability where if he gets on top of you, he's very heavy. But if he doesn't get on top of Almeida early, I think it's all Almeida. Realistically, whoever gets the first takedown is likely going to win the fight. And I think Almeida is just such a better athlete and just overall a much better fighter than Alexander Romanov. Almeida, for those that don't know, because, I'm sure everyone watched that Curtis Blades fight, but he was beating Curtis Blades. He was ragdolling Curtis Blades in round one. You know what I mean? He was beating up Blades as far as the grappling. He was ragdolling him in round one, completely ragdolling him, and then in round two he shot a takedown, and the takedown got stuffed, and he got finished. I don't think the same thing happens here. I think if he gets Romanov down once, I don't think Romanov gets back up. I think Romanov's going to quit. He's quit before. You can say Almeida quit a little bit against Blades, but Romanov's clearly quit before. The Espino fight, he quit. The Volkov fight, he quit terribly. He quit in 2 minutes. So I can't trust a quitter in Romanov. I don't like his striking either. I don't think he knocks out Almeida. I think Almeida gets him down and makes him quit again. So give me Jailton Almeida to win this one. Headliner of the prelims. This is actually an amazing fight. Amazing fight here. We have Roman Kopylov versus Cesar Almeida. This is a striking delight here. A fight that everyone should be excited about if you're a fan of high-level kickboxing. And speaking of high-level kickboxing, so Roman Kopylov, let's start with him. Kopylov, he's been in the UFC a lot longer than Cesar Almeida. He's had more UFC fights. He's had more professional MMA experience in general. And that is the reason why a lot of people are on the side of Roman Kopylov. That's why a lot of people are picking him to win here. But ultimately, I don't think his UFC competition that he's beaten is that good. In fact, I think Cesar Almeida would beat everyone that Roman Kopylov beat. Let's go through Roman Kopylov's UFC wins. Alessio Di Chirico, I think Almeida would beat him. Punahele Soriano, Claudio Ribeiro, and Josh Fremd. Those guys can't really strike anywhere close to the level of Cesar Almeida, and this will likely be a striking fight. Roman Kopylov has never really shown any wrestling or grappling offensive ability. He has shown some defensive grappling, defensive wrestling, but I don't think this fight is going to play out in the grappling at all. It's two kickboxers. They're going to strike, and I'm taking the actual kickboxer, the glory kickboxer that beat Alex Pereira, by the way. He beat Alex Pereira one time. I know he lost twice to him, beat him once. Regardless of what you want to say, it was a long time ago, so what? If you beat Alex Pereira in kickboxing, you're an elite kickboxer. You're an elite striker. I think Cesar Almeida is a better striker. I think Kopylov is dangerous, but he's dangerous typically, and he beats guys that are not on his level. Again, Punahele Soriano, Josh Fremd, Claudio Ribeiro, like those guys are not anywhere close to the striker that Cesar Almeida is. Those guys don't have a striking ability anywhere close. And Claudio Ribeiro actually hurt Roman Kopylov early in the first round and won the first round. I think Kopylov even could have the volume edge here over Almeida. I think he could have the volume edge, but all Almeida needs to land is one good right hand. He has a very strong right hand, and if he does land that, I think he will hurt Roman Kopylov. And I don't know if he finds the finish, but I think he will hurt Kopylov if he does land that right hand for Almeida. So Kopylov does have the kicks, the body kicks, and the head kicks, which can give Cesar Almeida some trouble, but I don't think it's anything that Almeida hasn't seen before. As I said, I would be quite surprised if the Glory Kickboxer were to lose in a striking fight to Roman Kopylov. I'm not saying Roman Kopylov isn't very good. Roman Kopylov is a very good striker, but I think Cesar Almeida, this could be his ticket. He could punch his ticket into the rankings with a win here against Roman Kopylov. So I do think Cesar has the punching power. He's got good leg kicks, but realistically, the punching power is what he's more so known for. That's his best ability. I don't think he has to worry as much about the wrestling and the grappling here. I think that if you look, Almeida's last two fights, he was kind of wrestled a little bit, especially by Dylan Budka. Dylan Budka is a wrestler. That was, kind of his background. He was a college wrestler. And the fact that Almeida was able to, survive that early onslaught of wrestling in round one and then finish Dylan Budka in round two, I think he can do something. I don't think Kopylov even shoots. I think if Kopylov does try to wrestle here, he might get a little bit tired, and Almeida's going to start pressing on the gas and hurting him. Kopylov has slowed down before. If you look at Kopylov's record, he's been to two decisions, 1-1 in fights that go the distance. So, and in the UFC, he actually hasn't won since the first fight of his career in 2016, he hasn't won a decision. So almost all of his fights end inside the distance. I don't see him knocking Cesar Almeida out. So if you don't knock out Cesar Almeida or finish him and the fight goes the distance, I think Kopylov will start to slow. Cesar Almeida will start to press forward on the gas and really start to hurt Roman Kopylov, start to hurt him with punches. And that's how I see this fight playing out. So give me Cesar Almeida to beat Roman Kopylov. Starting off the main card, we have Randy Brown, Brood Boy, versus Alessio Zaleski dos Santos. I'm going with Randy Brown. So Randy Brown is the younger guy by a few years here. 33, he's about to be 34 to the 37-year-old Zaleski. And for Zaleski, I think his chin is questionable. I know Randy Brown's been knocked out before, but Zaleski has been hurt in multiple fights now in a row. And we saw in Randy Brown's last fight against Muslim Salikov that if you slow down a little bit, if you don't really have what it takes anymore, Randy Brown can knock you out. He does have power. He does have that a good right hand. And for Zaleski, he went to a close fight with Renat Fakhretdinov. I understand that, but Renat's he's not much of a striker. He's more a dominant wrestler, and Zaleski's always been, pretty good at defending the wrestling. So I don't think Randy Brown wrestles here. I don't think he even needs to. I think this is a primarily striking fight. I think that Zaleski, I saw in the first round, he got rocked and dropped by Renat Fakhretdinov early. He even got rocked by Abubakar in the first round. It's like, I don't think Abubakar is really that good of a striker, so getting rocked by him early is not a good look. And the fight, two fights before that, he beat Benoit Saint-Denis dominatingly, which is that win is aged very well. But that was also a short notice fight up a weight class for Benoit, where he got completely dominated. But regardless, it was up a weight class 2.5 years ago on short notice. So I don't think that's going to play as much of a factor here in this Randy Brown fight. As I said, I don't think either guy has a lot of grappling upside. I think Randy Brown has much more striking upside. He does fight a lot of close fights. He goes to the distance in a lot of these fights, but I think if Randy Brown has more ability to hurt Zaleski could throw some kicks that could always give Brown some trouble, but Brown is the guy, the 78-inch reach, taller guy, longer guy. If he clips Zaleski with a right hand, it could very much hurt Zaleski, and he could possibly find a finish here, but I would imagine that the fight does go the distance, and in that case, I would favor Brown. Could be 29-28, could be close, but I do think Randy Brown gets it done ultimately in the end. Second fight of the main card. Not sure why this is on the main card over potentially like the Almeida fight, for example, but either way, or honestly, I feel like the Roman Kopylov fight and Cesar Almeida, I feel like the Kopylov and Almeida fight should be over Morono and Price because this fight here is a really good, both of these. More so the Kopylov fight. I think Almeida and Romanov could be one-sided traffic. The Kopylov and Almeida fight is a great fight. I think that should be on the main card over Nico Price and Alex Morono. However, this is going to be fireworks most likely. Nico Price fights are always fireworks, which is why he's on the main card. I am going to pick Alex Morono though. You know what? I don't know about that. I'm not sure. I'm debating that still. Yeah, mm, I'll pick. You know what? Yeah, I'll pick Morono. I'll pick Morono, but I am kind of hesitating on it because I think Nico Price does have the power to really hurt Morono. He already finished him in the first. This is a rematch, by the way. Price won the first fight in round 3. I think it got overturned due to Price smoking weed beforehand, which doesn't really count as like weed's not like a performance enhancer. You know what I mean? It's not like Nico Price was taking PEDs. Weed's not a PED, so that fight, in my opinion, should have stayed the same. Price won that one in my book. Don't care about what the official stats say. Price, he had a terrible showing last year, though, in his last fight against Robbie Lawler. That was just embarrassing. 30-second knockout loss. He got uppercut, and Robbie Lawler put his lights out early in the fight within the first minute of the first round. That was a retiring. I understand Robbie Lawler is a legend. I understand he's a former champion. He's a legend, great fighter. But the fact that Nico Price got knocked out badly by him, just a bad look. Price, he's not very technical in his striking. I think Morono is the much more technical guy. I would be like maybe Morono. I could honestly see him jump the gilly here. Funny enough, I know I'll talk about Poirier in the main event, but I think Morono could rock him and try to jump on a submission here because he's done it before and he's gotten it. But also sometimes he's went for it and he doesn't get it and he puts himself on his back. So, but I do think the fight IQ for Morono, generally speaking, isn't bad. I think the thing that Morono really has to worry about, which I don't think he takes down Nico Price, but Price has sneaky power. He has sneaky power, especially off his back. Nico Price has a knockout win off of his back against James Vick and Randy Brown, who we just talked about. Beating James Vick and Randy Brown off your back, landing an up kick against, I think it was an up kick against Nico Price, and then I believe it was a punch from his back against Randy Brown. I can recheck that. Yeah, hammer fist from the bottom against Randy Brown, and then up kick against James Vick. So Nico Price, he always has that meme knockout potential, but durability is a question mark. A little bit for both guys, but I think the durability is even more of a question mark for Nico Price. I think Price is way out, kind of washed up at this point. I think he's washed up. He got finished in his last 2 by Robbie Lawler and Phil Rowe. He beat Alex Cowboy Oliveira, but lost to Michel Pereira. Went to a split with Cowboy Cerrone. I don't know, man. Ultimately, I have no faith in Nico Price to win this one. I think Morono should get it done. I think this is a solid fight for Morono. Morono's losses, he lost to Joaquin Buckley, got finished in round 3 by Santiago Ponzinibbio. So could Nico Price catch him late in the fight if Morono makes a mistake? Yes. But I think overall Morono should be able to outpoint Nico Price and even potentially finish Nico Price. If Price's chin is really that bad, if Morono lands Morono's not known necessarily for the power, but he can hurt guys if he lands on them. And if he lands on Nico Price, he could hurt him as well. So I am going to go with Alex Morono to get it done over Nico Price. Featured fight of the night, we have Kevin Holland taking on Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. I see some love on Mikhail Oleksiejczuk this week. I don't understand why. I think Kevin Holland is way better. I think this is a bounce-back fight for Holland. He's lost 2 in a row. But if you look at the losses, if you honestly look at all the losses that Holland's had in his career, He's only losing to like really, top 10 level competition. Michael Venom Page is a very elite striker, and he can give anybody trouble on the feet. Jack Della Maddalena, he went to a split decision with JDM in a very competitive fight against JDM. I had JDM there, and I was sweating it because I was like, oh man, Kevin might win this fight. I thought JDM won, but I thought it was another one where it was like, it was close. Um, Beat Michael Chiesa, beat Ponzinibbio, lost to Wonder Boy. And if you look through all of Kevin Holland's losses, they're all the top 10 guys. Kevin Holland is one of those guys where, yeah, if he gets put up against the Chimaevs, against the Wonder Boys, the MVPs, against guys that have that sort of, um, if they have a big striking edge, right? So obviously a big striking edge. As I said, Wonder Boy has a striking edge over him. MVP has a striking edge. JDM has a bit of a striking edge. But guys that don't have that, or a grappling edge, Hamzat Chimaev was able to submit Kevin Holland in round one. That was on, Holland took that fight when he was preparing for a different fight. He was preparing for D-Rod. But Marvin Vettori, Derek Brunson beat him as well. But if you look at all of Holland's losses, his losses are to really good strikers or guys that were able to take him down and control him. I don't think Mikel Oleksiejczuk is anywhere near MVP. I don't think Mikel is anywhere near Wonder Boy. I don't think he's anywhere near Jack Della Maddalena. I don't think he's anywhere near Hamzat or any of those guys. I think Mikel Oleksiejczuk's a boxer. I think he has power early. But outside of round one, I think a round one knockout is probably his win condition here. Um, so yeah, I'm not a fan of, everyone, not everyone. A lot of people are on Holland. He has a minus 290, but I think Holland wins this fight, pretty much every single time as long as he doesn't get knocked out in the first round. So I think Holland, both guys have good power. Both guys have good power, especially early for Mikel. But Holland's power carries late in the fights. Holland also has the better durability. Holland has pretty much a granite chin up to this point. Holland's been cracked by Wonder Boy, by MVP, by JDM. He's been hit clean by many guys, and he doesn't go down. He's just a tough, tough guy. Um, I think the cardio advantage is on the Holland side. He's been the distance before. Better cardio, better grappling, better durability, way better level of competition. I mean, look at Mikel Oleksiejczuk's level of competition. Michel Pereira's good, but he got submitted in round one, club and sub. Chidi Njokuani, Caio Borralho, who he got submitted by, Cody Brundage, Sam Alvey. Like, the guys that Mikel Oleksiejczuk is beating are very, very low level. Kevin Holland, on the other hand, has fought some of the best of the best. He's fought world-class top 10 guys, whereas Oleksiejczuk just flat out hasn't. The closest guys to the top 10 in the last few fights, I mean, Caio Borralho's like top 15 right now, and Michel Pereira is also like that top 15 right now. But, he lost both of those convincingly. I think Holland should win this one. I think this is a clear bounce back fight. Holland coming off of two tough fights against JDM and MVP. Two tough fights. They're giving him a layup here. I think if Holland loses, I'd be shocked if Holland loses this fight. So I favor him heavily to beat Mikel Oleksiejczuk. Co-main event of the evening, we have Sean Strickland taking on Paulo Costa. Strickland and Costa. I'll start with saying Strickland has the better 5-round experience. He's fought and beaten, I would say, a better level of competition than Paulo Costa. Both guys have fought a similar level of competition, but I think the better wins have been on the Strickland side. Strickland beat Adesanya. I'm not going to really mention the Abus fight. I think Costa would beat Magomedov as well. But Nasruddin Imavov and Israel Adesanya are both very good wins. More so Adesanya, but Nasruddin Imavov is a very good fighter. I think Nasruddin Imavov is very underrated. I think he's a very elite fighter. The fact that Strickland was able to beat him is impressive. I also think Strickland should have cardio upside here. I think his cardio is better. I think his gas tank's better. I think his style is fit for 5 rounds, whereas Costa, if it was a 3-round fight, I would actually be pretty confident in Costa to win, but in a 5-round fight, it makes me question it a little bit. It makes me question it quite a bit. Sean's style, though, now here's the problem with Sean. He is very technical. He can put the volume out there and out volume Costa, But the problem with Sean is the first thing is he doesn't have a ton of power. I know he dropped Izzy in their fight, but and I know he can hurt guys. He does have the power to hurt guys, but he doesn't have like knock one punch knockout power, or he doesn't have power where if he hits you once, you're gonna get like really rocked and really hurt. Whereas Paulo Costa, I know Costa's not dropping guys and knocking them out either with one punch, but you've seen Costa's kicks against Robert Whitaker. He rocked Whitaker badly with a spinning heel kick, and guess what? Sean Strickland got knocked out by the same exact kick. The same exact kick that Zaleski landed on him years back is the same kick that Costa landed on Robert Whitaker in his last fight. Costa has very dangerous kicks. I think if Strickland isn't careful here, if he doesn't play his cards right, Costa could hit him with a head kick and really hurt Strickland bad. I think that's a possibility. Um, I think everyone thinks that this is going to be an easy fight for Strickland. I disagree. I think this is going to be very close. I think this could go either way. Um, if I continue on this kind of point, Strickland struggles. He does better against guys that he can dictate the range and dictate the pace against, right? For instance, Israel Adesanya. He walked down Adesanya and he beat him. He beat Adesanya. He was walking him down. He was dictating the range, dictating the pace. And Adesanya, he had no answer. Adesanya had no answer. He was always on the back foot, which Adesanya usually does very well counter striking, but he had no answer for Strickland's game. Strickland's just very technical, very composed, doesn't make a lot of mistakes, good defensively, which is why Adesanya wasn't able to do much against him. If you keep looking though, same thing with Abus. Abus, look how good Abus looked in round one. Abus Magomedov won round one clearly, but then he gassed out and Strickland started pushing the pace on him. And as soon as Abus couldn't dictate the pace, Strickland took over. He walked him down. He started to land combinations, and then he finished him. The fight against Nasruddin Imavov, what does he do well? He's a good, rangy striker. He's a guy who isn't going to be pressing forward, swinging big. He's a guy that likes to pick his shots. Strickland does very well against guys that pick their shots. Very well. Where does Strickland struggle against? Strickland struggles against guys that will not let him play that game. Jared Cannonier, Dricus du Plessis, guys that will kind of walk forward and swing big. Guys that will throw some, a lot of, work shots to the body, work body kicks. Paulo Costa will do that. I think this is a very competitive fight. I think this could be a fight where it does go to a split decision, where people are arguing on one side or the other. Oh, this guy won, that guy won. And I want to let it be clear that I picked Strickland in every single fight outside of the Adesanya fight. I picked him, if I look back, I picked Strickland in so many fights. I picked him against Hermanson. I picked him against Pereira. Picked him against Cannonier. Picked him against Imavov. Picked him against Abus. Picked him against Dricus. The only fight I didn't pick Strickland in is his fight against Adesanya, and obviously he beat Adesanya. So I think Strickland. I honestly, it's hard to say. It's hard to say for me because the Vettori fight for Costa, even the Rockhold fight, that was at that was at altitude, but I didn't like the Luke Rockhold look that well. The Robert Whitaker fight was competitive, but Marvin Vettori fight a few years ago, I didn't like that. Obviously, Costa also got finished by Adesanya in their fight. So it's a tough one for me to pick. It's really tough for me to pick. A lot of people are very confident in Strickland just being able to walk through Costa, just put the pressure on him, put the volume out there and win an easy decision. I just think it's going to be the power versus the volume. I think it's going to be one of those, right? Will Strickland's volume tell the story, or will the power and the kicks of Costa tell the story for the judges? It's a tough one to call because I do think it goes a distance. I think both guys are durable. I think Costa's durable. I think Strickland's very durable. I honestly think if anyone's going to knock out the other one, I think Costa's probably knocked out Strickland because I think he does have very good head kicks. And if Costa lands a head kick on Strickland, he will hurt him. Maybe he doesn't knock him out, but if you land a head kick on Strickland, you're going to rock him. You're going to hurt him badly. So I don't know here. I don't know. This is one where I don't have a strong lean. Just for the odds sake, just because the odds are so wide, I'm gonna lean Costa on the odds. But don't get me wrong, if Strickland goes out there and wins the fight, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's a very competitive fight. I think it could go either way. I think early on Costa could look good. I think later on in the fight Strickland will start to wear him down and start to land a lot. So ultimately, it's whatever you think happens in those middle rounds then, or if you think Costa can, if you think Costa will have the cardio to push in the late rounds, then you would probably favor him. If not, you'd probably favor Strickland. So that's just how I see this fight going. I think this one is just way more competitive than people think. I think this one could go either way. Lastly, we have Islam Makhachev taking on Dustin the Diamond Poirier. Um, I think Islam Makhachev is. I think Makhachev wins here. I want Poirier to win. I do want Poirier to win. If I had to pick, like, if you told me who do I want to see become the champion, I think I would say Poirier. I want to see Dustin do it. I think it would be a great story. It would be a great ending to a legendary career for Poirier. But there's a lot of things that just make me hesitant to pick him and just make me have to pick Islam, right? The first is just Islam. In general, Islam Makhachev is one of the best overall fighters I've seen in the sport. I think Islam Makhachev I think he's good everywhere. I don't see many weaknesses in Islam's game. I think Islam's got good kicks. He's got good striking defense. He's got amazing wrestling, amazing grappling. I think his fight IQ is very good. I think he knows, he listens to his coaches. He's going to do what Habib says in the corner. He's going to do what Coach Javier says. He's going to listen to his coaches. He's going to take the path of least resistance. And what is the path of least resistance? Take down Dustin Poirier and drown him just like Habib did, just like Oliveira did. Get him down. I know Oliveira took his back standing, but same thing. Get him down, get on top, get to his back, and just work from there. And I think Poirier will eventually give up a choke. I think Poirier will give up a choke. I know everyone's betting the Islam submission, but ultimately, I think Poirier, if the fight, actually, I'll say this. If the fight carries out late into the fight, if it gets to like round 3, round 4, then I'd be seriously considering, I would say Poirier actually has a chance if the fight goes late. If it gets into, like I said, round 3 or 4 and Islam can't finish the fight, he might start to slow down a little bit. Poirier might start to land some shots on him. But I think Poirier, I don't think he's going to be able to defend the takedowns early. I think Islam's going to take him down, get on top of him, and either rain down ground and pound or just find the neck and submit him. Poirier's takedown defense is not very good. He's been taken down by so many guys. He got taken down by Benoit multiple times in their fight before he found the finish. Benoit Saint Denis is not the defensive striker that Islam is. He's not even the wrestler that Islam is, and he was able to take down Poirier multiple times. Justin Gaethje obviously knocked him out with a head kick. Michael Chandler, he was a minute away from losing that or like 2 or 3 minutes away from losing the Chandler fight. Chandler was beating him in the wrestling. He took him down multiple times, had him in some dominant positions. Lost to Charles Oliveira, beat McGregor twice. Like, I think Poirier, certain guys he looks good against, guys that have weaknesses in their game. Guys like, for instance, guys like Chandler who don't have the best fight IQ, or guys like Connor who have been out of the cage for a while, guys like Benoit who have bad striking defense. Someone like Islam doesn't have weaknesses like that, and Poirier, he's always struggled with wrestling. He's always struggled with grappling. That's been his main struggle. His main struggle is pressure grapplers. And I think that's what Islam's going to do. I think Islam Makhachev wins this fight early. I think probably round 2 is my official prediction for Islam Makhachev to win. But as I said, I want Dustin to win. Dustin's a great fighter. I have all the respect for him in the world. If he wins, I'll be happy. But I have to be honest. I have to say what I think will happen, and I think Islam Makhachev will win this fight. So there it is. There are my full card predictions for UFC 302, Makhachev versus Poirier in Newark. Pretty good card. Thank you guys, as always, for watching, and I will see you in the next one.